Good morning, everyone. Today we'll be interviewing Mr. Benjamin Abalos Sr., my, my, my idol, my lolo, and the best lawyer ever.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. You're all students of LaSalle?
Oh my God.
Why that kind of reaction? okay.
Okay, so we're from
Okay.
the University of Santo Tomas. So I'm Joe, this Angel, your granddaughter, and Jonah the bata. Okay, so for this session, we're going to talk about policy making. So for you, sir, how would you define a policy?
Well, a policy is a course of action to be taken. In government service, that is your shall we say, pattern of work to be observed. The course of action that you will undertake.
So it will serve as your guidelines for like how would you regulation of your
Say, number one, for instance, punctuality is a policy that has to be adopted. Otherwise, ang hirap kasi yung when you say, di ba, anyhow, my boss will be late. Hindi ba? So, anyhow, when you're invited at 8 o'clock, anyhow, everybody will not be coming until 8:30. And I have adopted a policy of punctuality. When I was an incumbent mayor of Mandaluyong, when you invite me at 8 o'clock and you are not there or the crowd is not ready, so I say, I'm sorry, because I have a stream, I have a schedule to follow, several schedules thereafter. And besides, when you are not punctual, it shows disrespect. For me, it shows disrespect.
So for you, a policy is like a unwritten rules to be
That is an
followed.
unwritten rule to be followed, yes.
So, how does it differentiate from a law? Like
Well,
policy
a policy from law, from a
Yes.
law.
from a law.
A law defines also, of course, the course of conduct to be taken, but it has a penalty.
Oh.
If you don't obey it, then you're supposed to be either imprisoned or to be fined.
Oh, okay.
Whereas a policy probably is at most an administrative case, at most.
Okay.
So, lolo, what were your executive positions before that?
Well, the executive positions I have held were that of the mayor of the city of Mandaluyong, MMDA chairman, COMELEC chairman. Although I have been a prosecutor and a judge, in the latter cases, there were also policies which I adopted. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because you are in the judicial department, you could not impose it, or you cannot have your own policy. Remember, policy, as I said, is only a behavioral conduct which you impose or would like to impose, or a norm of conduct, or a course of business which you want to impose on all the parties appearing before you as a judge. That is why I said number one is punctuality.
Okay.
And although, ganun din na, as a prosecutor, you also conduct preliminary investigation, the same thing. As a matter of fact, I remember there was one time, he was asking for 30 days postponement for the next hearing, because he said he will have to look for his next witness. I told him, look, Panero, in 30 days, you could have gone around the Philippines twice already, or thrice already, just to look for that witness. Okay, I give you 15 days. So that's a policy I adopted, the policy of an expeditious disposition of cases by not allowing too many or too long postponements.
So for you, lolo, what's the most important or effective policy that you've ever encountered?
Well, as I said, punctuality. Second is honesty. honesty is very abrasive. As a matter of fact, when you're dishonest, a dishonest person, the commission of which is tantamount to a violation of law. Like, for instance, stealing or making some falsifications or some perjurious entries in order to for a gainful purpose, that amounts to a crime also. So honesty and punctuality for me are the policies I have adopted during my term. Not only as a mayor, but as a prosecutor. Because modesty aside, I've been a prosecutor of Manila. I've been a judge of Pasig. You know, when I was a judge in Pasig, when I say 8 o'clock, I mean 8 o'clock. When I bang the gate bell at 8 o'clock, everybody has got to respond. Otherwise, you will find yourself a citation for contempt. Why you should not be punished for contempt? Because as I said, it is disrespect not only to the court, but a disrespect to everybody.
Yes.
So what's the strengths and the weaknesses of policies or policy makings?
What are the...
Strengths and the weaknesses.
Of policies in general.
How would you consider a policy po
Like
to
a
be?
good one and a bad one.
Yes po.
I do not see any bad
Really?
downside of policy
It's for the
making.
common good.
It is probably in the implementation.
Oh, okay. So,
Look, all policies are good, I think.
yeah.
Unless you would say,
Mostly.
look, let's face it, a policy is always geared towards a good, a good governance, as in the case of government, no?
Yes.
Wala naman sigurong nauupo dyan na who would want a bad policy. No, it is in the implementation. It's more in the implementation.
So, if we're going to
That is the
revise our-
downside of policies.
Okay.
The implementation.
So, how are you going to like explain to us the downside and the
Well,
pros of implementing it?
Well, in the implementation, if there would be, you know, if you have your supervisors or the next in ranks to implement it, and they do not implement it, then you can subject them to disciplinary actions. In the case of, that's for the policies.
Okay.
Now, in the case of laws,
It's a
Different.
if the enforcers do not implement the law, they could be charged for dereliction of duty.
okay.
That is also that is the penalty. That is the difference. In cases of policies, if there is no implementation, the most that a person, the most that an executive can do, is to somehow either reprimand them, or the most is impose a penalty of administrative penalty of suspension. Whereas in the case of a law,
Stricter.
if there is no implementation, the person called to implement the law could be charged for dereliction of duty.
Okay. Okay. So, are there any like budgets that the government gives you to implement such
Come again?
budgets that?
Budget? Of
Yeah.
course, you need budget for that.
So,
In the law enforcement, you have a budget for
From
that.
where does it come from?
Well, the budget is always, it always comes from Congress, and or in the case of the local government, by the council. It could be in the council, if it is a policy, it could be part of the appropriation for the executive, meaning for the mayor.
So, for example, who approves the policies that are going to be adopted to be a law?
Usually, it's the executive for the policies.
Oh,
For the policy, or probably in consultation with his with his cabinet officials in case of a president, In case of the mayor, with the in consultation with his department heads. Now, the difference between a policy and a law is always adopted by the council in the case of local governments, or in the case of the national government, it's the legislative.
Oh, for a law.
The executive has no hand in it. They may recommend.
Okay.
They may recommend.
So,
Okay, so.
It's actually Congress or the Senate, and the council, the local council, who makes a law.
Okay. So,
As an ordinance in the case of the local council, and law in the case of national application.
So for a policy to be made into a law, it should be consulted.
It's not to be consulted. It has got to be. It has got to be made into one.
Okay.
It has got to be enacted into a law, either by the council or by Congress,
So what is the
approved
role?
by the executive committee.
Okay. So the executive committee approves
Even
the
if
law.
say Congress enacts a law penalizing, for instance, smoking in the public places, and then the president does not approve it.
So it won't be.
Yes.
Okay.
okay. As po as former MMDA chairman, how do you react po dun sa policy na no smoking in public places policy?
No smoking.
Yes po.
Well, in public places,
Yes po.
I think it was implemented
I
last
think
year.
it's too much. Well, look, smoking, it may be a bad habit.
Yes.
We have no quarrel on that. But if a person wants to shorten his life, then let it be. Let it be. We have a saying, life is short. And they want to shorten it, let it be. Ang sinasabi nito is public places. It's public, precisely. It's everybody's right to be there.
Okay.
I would not mind if you can smoke in closed areas, but not in public places.
Pero po, Lolo, you also gave out fines right po for that one.
What?
For breaking that policy po, they're being fined po, like 500 pesos.
Well, it's not only a policy. It's now I think, a law.
Really?
You cannot fine. You
So,
cannot
ano-
impose a fine if it is just a policy.
Policy. Okay. So.
So it became a law. In Davao, even in some public places, they do not allow smoking.
Okay.
No?
So, but what po is the difference between a policy and a law? The main difference?
Yeah, a policy is just a course of action. It's a norm of conduct.
Yes. Also, it's basically behavioral.
Yes, behavioral conduct without any
Written.
penalty.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas a law is something that has to be observed,
Written.
strictly observed. Otherwise, violation of it could either send you to jail or could make you pay a fine.
Yes. So ano basically is a written
It's a written thing.
agreement between the country and the lawmakers.
Although there are policies which have been adopted into a law.
So any examples of that certain policies that?
Well, for instance, a policy of not smoking, it has been adopted into a law.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
wala.
Oh yeah. There's a norm that there's no smoking and then.
Okay.
Pero po, Lolo, what are the underlying processes po in making a policy and parang yung adaption nun po into a law? Si Senator Abalos.
Well, the underlying policy there is what is best for the community. What is best to what is the best course of action you should take in order to attain your purpose.
So, yan po yung pinaka-basis in making a policy.
That is the basis. The attainment of your purpose, the attainment of your goal.
So Mr. Abalos, thank you for your time and sharing your knowledge with us, with everyone. Okay. And hopefully that.
You sure I was able to share you some knowledge?
Yes, sir. Whatever you shared will be beneficial to everyone.
Well, thank you. It's my privilege. And thank you very much for coming.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Lolo.